Oh my gosh, fam, you're in for a treat today. We got Maggie Kitch on with us, and this girl, I have to tell you, so the first thing I ever learned, or like the way that I was introduced to you, and you know this story, but anybody listening, obviously Breezy and I got married. If you don't know Breezy, if you're new to the show, Breezy's my wife. We got married in March, and a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Christy, she got us this book, this astrology book, and it was everything about Breezy, everything about me, and then how we mesh and like areas of opportunity. And it was one of the coolest, most personal gifts. And if anybody knows Christy, like this friend, this is like one of those, okay, you have those friends that they just get you, and they go right to the heart center, and they're the people that will never look at your registry because they're going to go so much deeper than that. This is Christy. And this was the first thing I ever learned about Maggie. And I had no idea like who even made it. And then I got a message from you on Instagram, and you were like, I made your book. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I work with you? And so it started like that. And then I booked a reading with you, which was so mind blowing. And I'm still implementing a lot of that. And now we're working together inside of my mastermind, and we're partnering, and it's like this cool business collab. But I'm a huge fan of you, and I know everybody listening is going to be a huge fan of you. And I'm just so happy you're here. So welcome to On the Daily.
Oh my gosh. I feel like starstruck and giddy, and like, even though I know you, it's just so, I feel like I feel so excited. I can't wait to talk astrology.
Have you been on a podcast?
No.
This is
No.
I burst your podcast cherry.
You did. And my astrology book cherry.
Oh, wait, really? That was your first book?
That was the first one that I made for like of that kind. It was very special. Like, I put my whole heart into that puppy.
Wow. You need to be selling, like, I'm about to get you so many book orders through this episode. I had no idea. I would have assumed that you'd been doing that for years. Like that was amazing. I just learned that, and that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really great for wedding gifts. I did one for my family. All 12 of us congregated last July, and I started our family trip with a family analysis. And I don't know if it's because we are all older and wiser, but
Right.
that was the nicest vacation we ever had. And I really
That's
think
awesome.
because everyone could see each other for who they are instead of like who we think they are, or like, this is normal, so this is how you should be too. And instead it was just everyone. And it wasn't, I don't know, maybe I'm seeing it differently than it was, but it was the nicest vacation for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to be making more of those books. Like, y'all, if you need a good gift, or even just want one for yourself, like, and you and your partner, you and your sister, you and your brother, you and your kid. Oh my gosh, now I'm like, I want one with like me and Owen. Like, that would be cool to see. Like, I mean, I know my kid pretty well, but it would be cool. Okay, so tell me, what this is such a silly question, but what is astrology in your words? Like, what is it for you? What has it done for you? Tell me all the things.
Okay, so astrology is so many things to me. Just generically, astrology is the study of movements of the celestial bodies and how they are relating to each other in the sky. So that is just very broad. How I use it very personally, I use it to breathe life into all of my actions. So for me, I get a lot of inertia in what I'm doing. So if I am doing hard workouts, I'm going to stay doing hard workouts. Like, I'm not going to balance it out with stretching. I'm not going to balance it out with like restorative. I'm going to stay doing what I'm doing. So I have found that if I work with the framework that the cosmos gives us is of ebbing and flowing and moving to this point of a peak where we do action, we do energy, we do momentum, we do building, we do all of those things. And then it wanes away from that peak and it comes down to a pit where energy is lower, and we are asked to reflect and surrender and restore and rejuvenate. And so by following the cosmic energy and kind of moving my own self-care practice, my own business practice, I find that it breathes life into what I'm doing. I feel like it magnifies my actions, because now I have a framework that I can follow instead of just being like, well, I have to leave in 75 minutes. Like I need to work out, sauna, shower, meditate. Like I would never leave my house if I did everything I wanted to do every morning, just in terms of like self-care and self-development. So to have something to follow that is consistent, it does not change. I feel like that's one of the only things in the natural world that is super consistent. Everything else changes. We're not separate from the natural world. So we can't assume that like, okay, my energy levels are going to be the same all the time. I'm going to have the same effort and excitement and passion all the time. That's so unreasonable.
Well,
So,
and anytime I've tried to do that, it has led to the most epic frustration and burnout.
mhm.
And I feel like that's going to speak to so many people in itself, because there are so many people out there who feel like they know that they don't maintain the same energy. Everyone knows, like we all know we don't maintain the same energy 24/7, but damn it, we'll all try,
Yeah,
you
we love
know?
trying.
It's kind of the balance of masculine and feminine energy as well, right? Like I feel like, I mean, obviously we know this, everything is connected. So whether we're talking about the Kabbalah, whether we're talking about the I Ching, whether we're talking about human design, whether we're talking about astrology, masculine and feminine energy, we're talking about this ebb and flow, which is a universal law.
Mhm.
And I mean, astrology was kind of the first navigation system ever.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The first known records of it are from 3000 BC.
Yeah.
And it wasn't localized in one area. It was all people across all continents. And it went over spans of time. Like, I just think that's the coolest freaking thing
Yeah.
ever. Like
Yeah.
we do that now with the internet, but like,
Right.
I'm sorry, what? How did they do that?
Right. Well, it's so funny to me when people go, "Oh, I don't follow astrology. It's like too woo woo for me." I was like, "Well, it was the first thing. Like it's our
Science.
evolution. It's science. It's how we were created. Like it's the first thing. Like
Yeah.
this dates before the Bible. This dates before anything else."
Mm. Yeah. And that's just the earliest known record. Like I always like to say that we don't know. Okay. We
No.
don't know. So
No.
who knows how much before they were doing that. And I was, okay. So to people that say, there's a listener right now that's like, I'm skipping like the astrology. Come on, get out of town.
Mhm.
Shave your legs on Saturday. Shave your legs, your armpits, do whatever. You do your wax on Saturday with the new moon. That is not going to grow back as fast. The hair is not going to grow back as fast as it would be if you were shaving at a different part of the lunar cycle, because it's all connected. Like if that
Yeah.
doesn't show you, that's a silly example, but it's very tangible. Like
Yeah.
you can,
Why is that? Why won't your hair grow back faster on the new moon?
because it's your the energy is waned. It's
Right.
gone. It's not in the building cycle yet.
Right.
So I mean, the Farmer's Almanac, I feel like is something people have looked at for a long time. They'll tell you good days to cut your hair if you want growth. They'll tell you good days to plant a fence post or to bury a fence post. Because if you do these things like out of order against the energies, the planets are gigantic. Like their
Right.
energies make a really big difference on us. And just because it's not super in our face, we can make it in our face. Like I shaved my legs on the last new moon and I didn't have to shave them again for like 3 weeks. And it just
Right.
blew me away because like I have a lot of hair. It grows very fast.
Same.
And
Girl.
there's yeah, self-care trips or tips this morning on the
Yeah.
astrology podcast.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you first get introduced to astrology? Like, what was your first kind of introduction to it?
Okay, so I actually held a wellness center in Indiana
Okay.
from 2018 to 2021 and did lots of face-to-face helping people. I do massage therapy. I'm a yoga teacher. We do infrared therapy. We did true life therapy, all sorts of kind of like alternative options. And when 2020 rolled around and things kind of changed in the how businesses were operating, I was like, I need to find a way that I can help people in an actual way where I'm getting to the root of their problem, without being face to face to them. I'm like, how can I, and astrology just filled the answer to that question.
Yeah.
So I took 3 trainings all back to back, like as fast as I could, give me all the information. And yeah, I felt like it was a way that I could actually help people, because that's what I was trying to do with the wellness center, with massage, especially, hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting so burned out because no one was getting better,
Mm-mm.
because no one was actually addressing the things that were hurting them. They
Right.
were looking to me to say, all right, Maggie's going to fix me today. And it was the most unfulfilled. It was rough. Like, I
Yeah.
started to hate it. I started to hate what I was doing. I didn't hate the people, but I wanted to shake them and be like,
Yeah.
I can't help you.
Yeah.
You have to help you. And
Yeah.
just after diving into astrology, I was like, oh my God, like there's so much that, number one, people don't know about themselves. And number
Right.
two, like we're all just out here living and assuming that everybody else is just like we are. And
Right.
that is not true.
I always say human design and astrology, like these kind of more cosmic ways of looking at ourselves, they're not going to save you, but they will give you tools to save yourself.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that is better than any band-aid, right? Because you're right. So I mean, but that's conditioning, right? We're just taught like numb it, fix it, more meds, get a massage, use creams,
Yeah. It's
numb
like
yourself.
they've taken curiosity out of the equation
Right.
completely. Because
Right.
it's like, well, where is this coming from? I don't know how you can't think that. If
Right.
something comes up, like what did I do differently that
Mhm.
gave me a rash on my skin? Or why does my neck hurt? Like,
Uh-huh.
not just like, oh, my neck hurts, but like, why?
Yeah. It's
It's
probably not
something that
just because you
you're
slept
doing.
weird on it.
Right. Probably not. I mean, that does happen, but
Right.
most of the time it's how you carry yourself every day.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, that is like a massage example, but it applies to everything.
Right. I
You,
remember when I was, and don't worry, y'all, we're gonna circle this back to how it applies to astrology. I got married when I was 20 and I moved to London shortly after. And about a year after living in London, I loved London. I loved living in London. I loved the people in London. I loved working in London. But I had a thought, like the day that I got married, I remember having a thought of like, well, this will be fun until it's not. And like then I mean, that goes back to like trauma. I grew up in like a divorced family, so it was just like normal for me to like think that. But I remember like a year after we got married, I knew that it wasn't going to last, and it was kind of just like biding time at that point. But physically, I was like pre-diabetic at that point. And we're talking, I mean, I was a professional dancer. I worked out for a living. I was a healthy person. And I definitely, sure, I ate sugar. Sure, I ate more pasta than I should have been eating. However, by any stretch of the imagination, it wasn't any more like obsessive than most people, I think, at the time. So it was so shocking to me. This is before I really knew about my astrology. This is before I really knew about, my design, who I am. But I look back now and I'm like, my body was literally screaming at me to make a change. Like, and not like not like a eat different, like you need to change your path here. This is not the path that you want to be on.
mm.
Took me 6 more years to finally make that choice, but
Yeah, here we are though.
here we are though. Look at me now. But yeah, it's so true. Like your body tells you when it's time, like anytime I've been weighing on big decisions that I know the right choice, but anytime I weigh on them, I feel it in my body 100%. My neck, my back, my low back, for sure, all the
Mm-hmm.
things.
When it
But
like kicks up like thought dust of like certain kinds of avenues that you're like, why am I sitting here actually thinking that I'm like not worth it?
mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it's so, yeah. And then we can use those they're like little alarm bells, whether it's physical or we're examining our inside and noticing our thoughts are out of just out of left field, not
Mhm.
something you're giving permission to. And then what we do is we get uncomfortable and we're like, well, I have to fix this.
Right.
And it's really the greatest indication that, like, I don't know, we work so hard to feel comfortable all the time and like numb out things that don't feel good. But like those little alarm bells, if we ignore them, like we're doing ourselves the worst disservice.
Totally. So tell me how, if, because now we have people's attention. Like, you know, now people are like, well, okay, now I'm listening. So, like, how does that relate to our astrology? And how can we, you know, we talked a little bit about it, you know, we build, we wane. How
Mhm.
can we apply these principles to the way that we grow a business, to the way that we act in our relationships, to the way we treat ourselves? Like, how can we apply these cosmic messages to our life?
Yes. Okay. So number one, I always say astrology, the best thing that it gives you is self-awareness. It gives
Mm-hmm.
you an opportunity to examine yourself objectively, almost like from a third party's view, where you're kind of peering in and just witnessing the fact of the matter of what is, like how you, I guess, when I look at someone's natal chart, that is a snapshot of the sky the moment that they were born. So that is, to me, is kind of like a roadmap. It's like your own personalized manual. Like these are the tendencies, the characteristics, the qualities that you came in with. And so that can be your detriment, and it can also be your medicine,
Mm-hmm.
where you get to look at yourself very, very removed and say, okay, well, my personality is like this. So I know I can use that as a liability, or I can use it like an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And then like all of that awareness gives you insight in relationships, because then when you know yourself, you can step back and look at all the others that are in your life, whether it's children, partner, like a romantic partner or business partners, and you can start to see the patterns within them. And suddenly they become you like love them from this place of that. It feels completely different because you
Mm-hmm.
can see, it's like an avatar when they're like, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
That is how it feels. So you witness them and you're like, wow, my God, I see you and I love you and I appreciate you and I don't want to get in your way. Like,
Right.
develop these strengths, work on those weaknesses, and we have everything we need. The awareness can also just give you career inspiration. If you know kind of what your strong suits are, what your skills are, it's easier to use them as an asset instead of a liability. It's
Yeah.
that awareness that we're just not seeing it, that makes it hard for us to move and operate in our businesses.
So give an
Um,
example of that. Like, says, I mean, we just did my reading, so kind of people are like, so like if if you're wondering what does that mean in like actual application, I am a lot of Sag in my chart, which is a lot of fire. I
mhm.
have a lot of fire and I have a lot of water in my chart, which is a lot of instinct, intuition, like
Action,
feel the
momentum.
pull and jump.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Uh,
that's how I've ran my whole life.
Yes. Yes. And I think that, well, so we had our meeting in April, which feels like 2 weekends ago. That's so crazy.
I know.
We had talked about giving yourself time. There's like a lull before Jupiter made a big move in your chart. So we were able to look ahead into the future and say, okay, well, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we know that these themes are prevalent for this time frame. So in order to get ready for this momentum and excitement that you can generate like right around now, then it's really important to do the rest leading up to it, because from rest we get to reflect, we get to do critical thinking. When we're not resting, we are like forming little weird conspiracies in our head all the time that become true to
Yeah.
us because we're flying by the seat of our pants through our life. We don't get to stop and like ascertain what is actually going on. So with that for you, we were just able, like, do you feel like that benefited you?
Yeah, I
The
mean, I've definitely resisted. I still struggle with resisting it just because I think of how much fire I have in my chart. It's very, and I think I shared with you because I have so much fire in my chart and because Saturn has been in one placement for so long for me, I
Mhm.
have always been the way I interact with Saturn is if I'm not moving at a million miles a minute, I get very uncomfortable. And a lot of
Mhm.
people, it's the opposite. When Saturn is like fucking with them, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening. We're like, because I think because of how much Sag and like the placement of Saturn in my chart, that's my comfort is like fast, momentum, speed, fire, you know? And so knowing that April through, I think you said like through pretty much like the end of summer is like
Mm.
a really good rest period and like just kind of starting to ramp up for that momentum that's coming. It's a
Mm.
good reminder for me when I do start to feel out of control because things aren't moving at a million miles a minute. It's easier for me to kind of get back to myself and say, okay, thank you, stars.
Yeah. Well, we got to practice trust too. Right? Like,
Yes. And it's not trust in the star, like, yes, trust in, you know, the divine, trust in all those things, but trust in yourself. Like it's more learning how to trust myself. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like, you know, how you said it, you have this blueprint, the snapshot when you were born, this blueprint that you come in with. I do the same thing. I say the same thing with human design. I'm like, I think we co-created that before we even came here as a map for us to remember when we get out of control, when things start to get crazy, when we feel like we don't know ourselves. It's we have that map and we co-created that map with God, source, universe, whoever it is for you. I
mm,
really believe that. And it so when I, you know, when I do readings and like when you and I did our reading, it was like oh yeah. So
like I'm,
remembering.
yeah. It's like, how did I get so far away from like what I am?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And giving yourself permission. I think astrology for me has been super beneficial and facilitating in me just that awareness piece that you talked about, but also just learning how to kind of be comfortable with knowing that everything is exactly where it needs to be. Everything is right on time.
Mm.
That's how it's like really, it's been such an instrument for me in that way.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that it's just a mirror. Like it's not dictating anything. It's not like, yeah, when the planets move or the frequencies change and they ping off each other in different ways. And I like to think they work like hormones. Like they're just kind of under the surface. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
something like when your thyroid produces like thyroid hormone, it's not like you're like, oh, there it is, found it. Like it does its job and you know that it's doing its job because you're still functioning.
Right.
Like I just think that's how the planets kind of affect us.
Right.
And yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a really good way to look at it. And I think a lot of people that don't understand astrology feel that I think people who don't understand astrology are looking at people who follow astrology like you're just letting this thing like dictate your life, and it's like no, 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 no. The same
No.
way that like you take your blood pressure medication and you trust that it's going to do its job,
Mm.
I have radical trust in my
Mm.
creation.
Yes. Yes.
It's
And
really
the
not that far off from God if you really think about it.
no,
It's the same.
no, it's not. That's how I don't know. It's so beautiful. It
Hmm.
like, oh,
What
it's
are
just
some like forecasts coming up? I know we just obviously we're recording this before the new moon, but now that you're
yeah.
hearing this, the new moon just happened on this past Saturday. But what are we looking at moving forward over the next weeks, months?
Okay. So, after the new moon is a really good time when the moon is waxing. So it's getting bigger every single night till we get to a full moon. That's ideal for building. It's ideal for taking action within your business. It's ideal for like the more masculine side of the spectrum where you know what your goals are. And then you think like, okay, how can I move myself to get there? What can I go out and do in order to get me closer? So that is like personal development of that's for the next 2 weeks. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be building and taking action. So just I like to just kind of structure my week like that a little bit. I'll say yes to more things. I'll like do more social like connecting with people, even if it's just like, hey, let's meet for coffee while we both work. Like we don't that's just me. I'm Scorpio. So
Yeah, you are Scorpios. You guys, you don't even need to be talking to people. You just want to be you can say I hung out with friends today and you guys could all just be sitting at tables on computers like not talking to each other, but you hung out with friends today.
I'm doing that today actually, because otherwise I sit and look at my books and the stars for like I forget like
Yeah.
hours. Will like
But that's another way that astrology has helped you. Like knowing that about yourself. Same. I used to think like there was something wrong with me because I never wanted to have sleepovers. I never wanted, like, I don't like group work sessions. I do not. If I go to a group work session, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to work. I want to hang out. I want to have fun. I want to play. So if I'm really working, I'm in my office and don't anyone talk to me. Let me just become a hermit for a little while. That's a huge misunderstanding, I think. I'm also Scorpio rising, but I think that's a huge misunderstanding of Sagittarius is that we're like all extrovert all the time, but we're not. Like we're introverts.
seekers. You're like insatiable quest for information and knowledge.
Yes, always.
Perspective. Yeah. So that doesn't always come with a bunch of other people because they can be distracting.
Right. My karmic journey is very personal.
Mm.
But it's not, I mean, it's also transpersonal because it's like, it's personal how I receive the information, but it's very transpersonal in I receive information from a lot of different people and sources, but the way that I implement that has to be done alone.
Mm. Yeah.
I found that for myself. Okay, so we are in our building phase.
Phase in the action. So for just a couple notes for yourself, this is a really good time to do really strenuous exercise. Go do your weights, go do your hard stuff, go do your stuff that makes you sweat, because as the energy builds, our energy builds. And so I think of the steam in a tea kettle. You put water on the stove, it starts to boil. That air has to go somewhere, the steam has to go somewhere. So if you don't give yourself an outlet for healthy expending of energy, then it's going to come out in ways that you don't like. It's going to come out in a nasty comment. It's going to come out on the road, like road rage. It's going to, like, the ways when we don't give ourselves permission to let it out, then it just forces its way out. So exercising, really good to go, just get it, just give yourself your personal records the next 2 weeks. For skincare, hydrating is really great. You want to build your skin, you want to build moisture, you want to slather yourself in all your lotions and potions. For food, I think of more like living foods, like life building foods. So I don't want my body to be made out of Snickers and donuts. So like this weeks, I'm going to focus on like everything that I eat. I'm going to be like, do I want to be made out of this? And maybe I do like a Snickers ice cream bar sometimes, but
I was
like,
going to say, sometimes I think that would be fun.
yeah, not all of them, but I mean, it just kind of helps. Like if I'm sitting at a restaurant and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to get. Then I'll think about where the moon is and I'll be like, okay, we're building. So I'm going to like get something hearty. If the moon's waning, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to try for soup or like sweet potatoes or something that is
Grounding.
more easy to digest. So those are just the kind of easy ways that, I mean, you could take one of those every day. You don't need to do it all every day.
Right.
As after that new moon, so Wednesday, this is coming out Tuesday, Wednesday, the next day, the sun's going to move into Cancer. So we're going to be moving into Cancer season. Where the sun is just kind of reveals for the collective, for everybody, what the tone of your personal expression is going to be. So for me, I notice when the sun goes into water signs, emotions are just a bit closer to the surface. I can cry more. I can, like, my mom can tell me a beautiful story on the phone and I can, like, my throat, I can feel where I don't normally operate that way. I did when I was a teenager and like hormones, but like now it's just not as close. So it's going to change our little personal expressions, the undertones of how we express our own personality. And it's fun to witness. It's fun to see how there's a little bit of give in everything. Like everybody, the Taurus or the Capricorn that's like hot, rigid and like professional, experience little subtle changes as well. So it's fun to be an investigator and witness all of the energy moving through everybody.
I'm super affected by Cancer energy.
I am too. It's Pisces for me. Pisces season, I always feel like womp womp womp.
Oh, you're Pisces. Yeah, Pisces. I have fun in Pisces. Like March, I'm like I'm having a great time, but like Cancer, I'm like, oh, I'm crying again. I also
Uh,
feel it like the time I always like share my feelings with everyone in,
yes.
in July.
And we know this, go as a business, promoting your business, helping people with their businesses, everyone's going to be a little bit more fine tuned to the Cancerian themes,
Yeah.
the mother, the living situation, who you are behind closed doors. So we know that if everyone is more sensitive to that, then you're going to get more views. People are going to feel like you're speaking directly to them
Yeah.
because it's like, oh my God, wow, that hit me. I feel that. Like, how does she know me so well? And it's because you know what's going on in the mirror of the
Yeah.
sky.
You're
And
sharing
so,
more feelings instead of like more action.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
actually a really good tip. Everybody, start talking about your feelings on the internet.
well, I feel
We're
like
gonna have
we've been.
everybody who listens to this episode is just gonna be crying on their stories. And they're gonna come and be like, Danielle, it didn't get me sales. And I'm gonna be like, you missed the point.
So yeah, that's not exactly what we said.
Exactly what I said. Okay, so Cancer is coming. We are letting those emotions come to the surface as they want to, but like not force it, right? Like just be really present.
Yeah, yeah, and just don't be afraid to feel. That I think is what a lot of why people get uncomfortable with Cancer or any water. Like I just think because it can be like that tidal wave that
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, like I need to do something about this and I need to do it now because my life depends on it. But that's not the case.
Mm-mm.
Like those feelings, everything that comes up is like a GPS signal. You can use it. Like if it's like bad, uncomfortable, like negative, like anger, resentment, guilt, examine that. You
Yeah,
can't just put that stuff down and expect nothing to come of it.
right.
So if it's joy, happiness, gratitude, like share it with people.
Yeah,
Write a letter, like call your mom. Tell her, hey mom, I thank you for bringing me into the world. Like
yeah.
I've just feeling so much, and I think that's what we're here to do is like do the human.
I
And
agree. And when we live and when we allow that to happen, like, so through July, I actually think this is a sidebar. I actually think that's why, like, the 4th of July in America is like so, like, everyone is so happy and like, we love America because, like, it's Cancer season and everybody's emotions are so, like, heightened anyway that it's like yes, the flag, like these things that most people like don't care about, all of a sudden we're like, yes, thank you, America. Like we're just get
yes.
yeah. Um anyway, that was a side thought, but then I always feel like towards the end of July, like after that we're back into fire, right? We're back into Leo. So it's like I always feel any of those. I journal a lot. I journal a lot in July because I do have a lot of emotions. And so letting that kind of come up and go onto paper, then as we come into Leo season, I'm like, okay, here's where we're going.
Flip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Done the homework. Now it's time to play.
Right. Yeah. I mean, y'all, I hope when you're listening to this, like if this is giving you anything, I hope it's just giving you like some peace, but also some ideas. And I hope you're just getting really curious with yourself. And, you can always book a reading with Maggie because she can go through your personal chart with you and kind of help you map that out. But what about like any other planets? I know you wanted to talk about Mercury a little bit in communication.
Yes. So I want to give you all a little homework assignment. The week after the podcast comes out, Mercury will move into Cancer. Now, before I say anything else about that, Mercury is the planet that represents how you communicate. It's all like mental faculties. So how you communicate, how you organize, how you learn best, all those kind of mental operations, we can gain a lot of insights on if we know where Mercury falls in your chart. So I am Scorpio sun, but my Mercury is in Sag. Your Sag sun and Sag Mercury. So like that, it just
And Moon.
and moon, yeah, and like five others. But that's why like my Taurus boyfriend has an Aries Mercury and he's like way more playful than a normal Taurus because
Mm-hmm.
his mind is fast paced, it's fiery, it's energy, it's like he wants to be doing something all the time. And that is just it gives us all our own flavor. So to look at Mercury in your natal chart, to know where it is when you were born, you can learn, like, if it's fire, you have a very energetic mind that probably works best in short bursts, not all for stretches and stretches of time. You probably need to break it up. And then if Mercury is in an air sign, this is more intellectual. It's more theories, thoughts, concepts. So that's the realm that your mind is operating from. If your Mercury is in an earth sign, it's more like, I think of like a rhinoceros taking one step at a time, one thing at a time. These are the kids in school that need repetition, repetition, repetition. It seems like they don't care about learning. It seems like they're too slow, like they can't learn. It's just because their mind takes one step at a time. So you're like a little Capricorn Mercury and an Aries Mercury are not going to learn the same way. They're not, if they're in a classroom together, the Aries is going to be like running around the room and the Capricorn's going to be like, why are we not on schedule? Like, it's just, it gives you the flavor of the mind. And then water is more nonverbal. If your mind is in a water sign, you don't really think in words, it's more in feeling. So you need like quiet, you need time to like process. And so just to know that without knowing Aries Mercury, without knowing Libra Mercury, you can get a really good feel for how you best learn, for how you communicate, and you can see it in all of the other people that you interact with. I have an aunt that has a whole bunch of air, like Aquarius and Libra out the wazoo. She is always 5 steps ahead of you in conversation. Like, she doesn't listen. She talks really fast. She already knows what you're going to say. So there's no like, you can start to pick them out very well. And then that brings you understanding, and it brings you like, okay, so I know that I do things in bite-sized pieces, one step at a time. And I know that they are very fast. So I'm going to schedule myself a little bit more time to go through this before we would get together, because we're not operating with the same like operating system. It's like iPhone and Android. Like, it just doesn't. And that can be really frustrating if you're not aware.
Right.
If you don't practice awareness, it can get very much like you get consumed by the frustration. So that is helpful about knowing your natal placement, but where Mercury is right now in the sky is for the collective. So that's going to set the tone for all of us communicating here on Earth. So next week on Monday, the 26th, Mercury is going to move from an air sign, which is fast intellect. It's thoughts, theories, concepts, like all this imaginary realm. It's going to move into Cancer. So it'll just be interesting to see, to witness, now that you have this information, how the like communicating between people changes from like all over the place to more like, it's more like poetry. It's got more flow, it's soft, and like it's more nurturing. And I mean, those are just like the happy qualities of Cancer. Like there are some that are tough to work with. I don't like to say good or bad, but just practice watching, listen to how people talk, and get it's so fun to be like, I feel like they probably have a fiery mind or like, oh my God, they won't shut up, they probably have an air mind. Like, how is this?
I think because like I'm realizing when you were talking about Mercury and like individual natal placements, and you're like, I always imagine like people with an earth sign for Mercury, like they need repetition. Their mind is very grounded and it moves very philosophically, I feel like almost. I was like, I guarantee you my son has his Mercury in Capricorn. And I looked it up, and Owen's Mercury is in Capricorn. And I was like, that's exactly how he is so smart. I mean, Owen, like Owen's an Aquarius, but the only thing in Owen's chart that is Aquarius is his sun. He's got a lot of Capricorn in his chart. He's also got some Taurus, like Taurus is his rising and it's in his first house. So he's like, ground, like Mr. Earth Angel. Like, he is just Mr. Earth Angel, but he is so philosophical. He is so, he needs to tell, like, if he's telling you a story about something, it is like, my brain is like, I got it. Yep, we're good. And he goes, no, mama, this happens. And then this happens. I'm like, yeah. And then this. And he goes, no, mama.
Just
and then
wait.
This. Yeah. He has to tell the whole story, where my brain is like, yep, got it. Moving on. Like, and I'm so blunt, and he is not.
Yeah. Yeah. So when he gets into school, it's going to be so helpful for you to know this, and where he's like having homework. I don't know his exact age, but like flashcards are going to be your friend. Like that kid is
He,
going to have to go through things a couple times for it to really be in here.
yeah, I mean, he's going into second. He's brilliant. I mean, he's going into second grade. He's in like the gifted program, but the gifted program isn't like for smart kids. Yes, they are smart, but it's like more of a, it's the kids that think differently. And that's Owen to the nth degree. He's also a projector in human design. So he's just like, he sees things just so differently than everyone sees them.
Mm.
But they did advance him in math. And so he's actually in third grade math. And one of the biggest things I said is I was like, well, this is either going to go really well for him or it's going to be a train wreck because sometimes he needs you to explain things. So if he's got it,
Mm.
he's the only kid I know that can like learn division over breakfast and then teach his first grade teacher about it at lunch. Like he's just, but it's because he's passionate about it. If he doesn't care,
Mm. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's so helpful for me to know as his mom, like knowing his astrology, knowing his human design, knowing like, of course, my wife and him like butt heads in the way they communicate. He is a Capricorn Mercury. She is a Gemini Mercury. Like it is opposite, like the most opposite way of communicating. And sometimes like if they're in it, they're in it. And I'm like, my fiery Sagittarius Mercury can very quickly be like, here's the situation. Let's move on. And I'm the one that usually is like the like,
Pull them
disperse.
apart.
Yeah. But like, can you imagine not knowing that? Like, I feel like so many people, like, they don't, if you don't know these things, you don't know the roadmap and it's not dictating for you,
Mm.
but it is a roadmap. And if you are feeling out of control, maybe if you tried to work with the cosmos and adapt to the cosmos instead of trying to resist it all the time, you
Mm.
might not be burnt out as much. You might not be as frustrated all the time. You might not get as bitter or angry or down on yourself or depressed, right? You can actually learn to work with the energies of the universe.
Mm. And I picture it in my mind's eye that you like, then when you're taking actions, because you're not flailing, you're not like, wow, what is going on? Then your actions are like rooted in the megaphone that is the planetary energy. And it's like amplifying what you're doing because you're working in flow with the universe instead
Yeah.
of like with your two little nose holes above the water, like send help.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not, I mean, this is just another way that you can look at your life and like, just as you would go to therapy, just as you would go, and take yoga because it clears your mind, it's better for your mental health. Like this is, I think, learning your astrology is just another tool on the belt. It's not everything.
Right.
I mean, even I would say even you and I who like are so based, like our lives are so grounded in astrology, human design, like just the universe in general. It's not everything. And like, it doesn't dictate my decisions,
Right.
but it is a tool that I can pull when
Mm.
when I need it. Like you
Mm.
said, if you're at a restaurant, you don't know what to order, it is a tool you can use. If I am
Mm.
feeling extra spicy and emotional and like I want to burn everything to the ground, it's a good tool for me to pull out and be like, well, what's actually happening in the universe right now? And like, can I actually work with this a little bit better than I am currently?
Yeah, like where's the release valve? I know it's somewhere. I can find it. And it's always there. You don't need anything extra fancy. I mean, it's nice to have an app to know because I can't identify where everything is just in the sky, but like it,
There's a
you don't,
widget you can put on your phone. Do
yeah.
you like I have Widget Smith, like you can't see this if you're listening, but I have the current placement of the moon on my phone as my home screen. So like currently it's a crescent. It's 13% alum and it's tells me when the moon is setting, when the moon is rising, and it tells me how many days until, the new moon. And I just look at that. So like if I am like, why am I feeling this way? And I go, oh, that's why.
That's right. And then it gives you permission to be feeling that way without
Yeah.
having to change it, without having to be like, like,
Yeah. What are
yeah.
some of your favorite apps that you use?
It's been a while since I tried CoStar. I know that's a really popular one. The first time I used her, first couple times, I felt like afraid. So I was like, I'm not going to use that one.
Mm,
It just made me nervous, which is weird because we're not afraid of astrology. We do.
mm-mm.
That's not what's going on here. But now I really like Astromatrix a
Okay.
lot. That one will give me a little, it'll tell me like what the transiting planets are doing in relation to my natal planets. So
Okay.
like where the stars, where the planets are moving now, like if Mercury right now is conjunct where Mercury was when I was born, I know that I'm going to have a mentally active day. And
Cool.
so I could look at my schedule and be like, okay, that's a brainstorming day. I'm going to say no to these three things that popped up that aren't going to let me use my mind as much as I want to.
Cool.
And yeah, I love it. It's
Well, I adore you and I can't thank you enough for this conversation. I know like everybody listening is just on fire. So, y'all, we are putting in our show notes ways that you can go and work with Maggie. Her Instagram is, what's your Instagram? It's at,
magnetic, but it's kind of spelled more like my first and last name. So it'll be in the show notes too. So you
yeah,
don't have
we'll put it there for you, and then links to her, the ways to work with her, but book a reading with her. Like it's gonna, if anything, it's gonna give you more tools, and that's what we're here for. So thank you. I love you, and we'll
I
chat
love
soon.
you.
All right, bye.
Yay.